All right, hello, Kuna. We are going to be reviewing the July 2nd City Council meeting. All right, let's just see if there's any discussions. I'm not seeing anything. This is pretty short. I'm not sure. I didn't really see any discussion, so let's take a look here. Regarding downtown design standards. Oh. And performance bond. Looks like they're holding somebody's feet to the fire. That's R41. Okay, so these are three. Let's see what's going on there. That's interesting. R42. Term is presidio. Trying to do a keyword search here. Sometimes they skip they skip issues. Performance bond. So maybe they have a word bond. There's no word for bond. Let's go to design. See the resolutions here. I don't know what's going on here with word search.
To approve Nancy Stauffer's appointment.
That they need to go. We came up with two potential fixed routes.
All right, so wow, it looks like there's going to be a daycare revocation. That's pretty interesting. Outstanding Public Works Director. Administrative citation. You know, maybe these are just consent items, so they approve this all at once. Okay, so I'm interested here for the daycare here.
The thing about that restructure for Kuna is that the small.
All right. Okay, thank you. Now, Valley Regional Transit presentation.
That's an external report.
There's a fair amount of.
That someone is retiring, and I thought this would be a really great time to. Nathan Stanley.
Mayor, Council, Nathan Stanley, City Clerk, 751 West 4th Street. I don't believe the owner of Watch and Grow is here for the hearing. Notice was sent June 19th for their revocation of their daycare license. Pursuant to City Code 310-11-4. Oh, I'm sorry. Per City Code, Title 3, Chapter 10, Subsection 5, applicants for a City of Kuna daycare license must hold a valid, currently enforced basic daycare license issued by the state of Idaho. On June 14th, Idaho Health and Welfare revoked Watch Me Grow's daycare license. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Okay, questions for Nathan? None at all. Thank you. All right, this is a public hearing. Did anybody wish to testify in this matter? Did we get a chance to sign in? Okay, I think that it's kind of a procedural type of thing. Since they don't have a license with the Department of Health and Welfare anymore, no state license, we really have no choice but to revoke this license. So unless you have any further questions, we'll
Peter,
close the.
do you have any questions?
No, I do.
I'm just curious, the time frame, so once this is served, I guess, there's two kids that are affected by this, so are they already?
Closed?
Yeah, they're already closed.
They're already closed.
I make a motion that we close evidence presentation and move to deliberation.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Mark, how do you want this to?
All right, so it didn't seem like it was something that they were opposed to anyway. They were closed. They didn't show up. More of a routine item. Now they're okay. Charlie Long. I think he works at.
Citizen Achievement Award to Charlie Long. Selema worked on some information for me, so I'll go ahead and read this. After decades of dedicated service to our community, Charlie Long has embarked on a well-deserved retirement. Since graduating in 1977, Charlie has had a long grocery career, starting at Johnny's Food Store in Federal Way, Washington. His journey took him to numerous stores, including Maple Valley Food Store, Albertsons in Nampa, Gary Lane, Meridian, and Vista, as well as Paul's in Caldwell, Mountain Home, and Kuna. When Albertsons acquired Paul's in 2016, he worked at the Broadway store, and then he made his way back to Kuna. For the last 5 years, he's been the cornerstone of the Kuna Ridley store, where his leadership and commitment have been both evident and inspiring. It's not often you encounter such an incredible person that is cherished and respected by so many and has made such a profound, lasting impact in a community. Charlie Long has created a legacy in the city of Kuna through his kindness, spirit of giving, and tireless dedication. Throughout the years, Charlie has become known as a huge supporter of the community, from youth programs, school sports teams, and clubs, as well as local events like Kuna Days and the Veterans Day Breakfast. His leadership has been evident while serving on several boards, such as the Initial Point High School and Kuna Chamber of Commerce. He's also been a strong advocate and supporter of the Kuna Food Bank. Overall, Charlie ensured that everyone in Kuna received his wholehearted support.
All right, so it looks like this was the major ordinance change. Finally got approved. I know it was. What I have no idea what's going on here. This one is like super large for the agenda in terms of business items. I think the amendment change got done 2024-18.
Support. I, Joe Steer, Mayor of Kuna, would like to present Mr. Charlie Long with this Outstanding Citizen Achievement Award for years of dedication. Ordinance 2024-17, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Kuna providing certain findings and amending Section 1 of Chapter 4 of Title 1 Kuna City Code to make technical corrections and add administrative citation fine schedule.
Okay, so here's the 16, and they pretty much approved these.
Three readings of.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries. And then just to kind of clean up so that all of the directors are recommended by council. All this one isn't required by law. I think it's just cleaner to have them all that way and then we don't get confused. So I would ask you to consider to approve Nancy Stauffer's appointment as Human Resources Director.
I make a motion that we consent to appointment Nancy Stouffer as the Human Resources Director.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries.
Madam Director.
What's your background?
Thank you for all you do, Nancy.
Thank you. I think that kind of cleans things up a little better. Consideration to approve ordinance 2024-16, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Kuna making certain findings and adding Chapter 4A to Title 1 Kuna City Code, and thereby establishing an administrative citation program and providing a severability clause and directing the city clerk and providing an effective date.
You guys have any questions? I make a motion that we waive three readings of ordinance 2024-16.
Second.
Motion's made seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay.
Motion carries.
Make a motion that we approve ordinance 2024-16.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded for approval. Any further discussion? Nathan, would you poll the council?
Councilmember Diggs?
Yes.
Councilmember Learwood?
Yes.
Council President Bruce?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
I make a motion that we approve the summary publication of 2024-16.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Consideration to approve ordinance 2024-17, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Kuna providing certain findings and amending Section 1 of Chapter 4 of Title 1 Kuna City Code to make technical corrections and add administrative citation fine schedule and amending the infraction penalty where no fine is provided and providing a severability clause and directing the city clerk and providing an effective date. Yes.
I had a finger up.
This is, I'm sorry, I'm just making sure. 16? Yes, okay. Okay.
You good? You good?
18 was what we had.
Yeah. Make a motion that we waive three readings of 2024-17.
We have a motion and a second to waive the three readings. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Make a motion that we approve ordinance 2024-17.
Second.
Motion is made for approval. Any further discussion? Nathan, would you poll the council?
Councilmember Diggs?
Yes.
Councilmember Learwood? Yes. Council President Bruce?
Yes. Make a motion that we approve a summary publication of 2024-17.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Consideration to approve ordinance 24-18, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Kuna providing certain fines.
Okay, so what it does look like, there are some administrative fines rather than having to go through a misdemeanor process. And then they added those fees here. Looks like first offense is $50. And I guess these can be applied, or 300. Second offense, $100. Third is 200. Then 300 each subsequent. Administrative citation that is dismissed. Let's see here. Stopping, standing, or parking. The fine shall be $25 for a first offense, 50, and then 100. Interesting.
And
You know, they didn't really. I don't really see they had much discussion on this.
Section 17 of Chapter 3 of Title 3, Kuna City Code, making a violation of Chapter Solicitors and Peddlers, enforceable by administrative citation.
wonder
And
if they
amending Section 9 of
actually-
Chapter
I'm
4 of Title 3,
missing
Kuna
one
City
of
Code,
the-
making a violation of Chapter General License Provisions, enforceable by administrative citation. And amending Sections 2, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14 of Chapter 7 of Title 3, Kuna City Code, making a violation of certain provisions of the Chapter Taxi Cab Regulations,
Evening,
enforceable by
Mayor, Councilman.
administrative citation. And amending Sections, let's see, what's that here? Okay, amending Section 16 of Chapter 8 of Title 3, Kuna City Code, making a violation of the Chapter Special Events enforceable by administrative citation. And amending Section 15 of Chapter 9, Title 3, Kuna City Code, making a violation of the Chapter Temporary Mobile Vendors Permit enforceable by administrative citation. And amending Section 22 of Chapter 3, Title 7, Kuna City Code, making a violation of Chapter Public Ways and Property enforceable by administrative citation. And amending Sections 2 and 3 of Chapter 1 of Title 8, Kuna City Code, making a violation of certain provisions of weed control enforceable by administrative citation first and by misdemeanor citation after. And amending Section 15 of Chapter 4, Title 8, Kuna City Code, making a violation of the Chapter Public Nuisance enforceable by administrative citation. And amending Section 4 of Chapter 2, Title 9, Kuna City
All
Code.
right, so it looks like all of this is adding administrative citations for all of these issues.
Making a violation of Chapter Open Burning Violations enforceable by administrative citation. Amending Sections 8, 9, 11, and 16 of Chapter 3, Title 10, Kuna City Code, making a violation of certain provisions within the Chapter Animal Control enforceable by administrative citation. Amending Sections 4 and 11 of Chapter 1, Title 11, Kuna City Code, making a violation of certain provisions, loading and unloading zones, pedestrians, enforceable by administrative citation. And repealing Section 10 of Chapter 1 of Title 11, Kuna City Code, riding horse at night, light required. And amending Section 12 of Chapter 2, Title 11, Kuna City Code, making a violation, stopping, standing, parking violations, enforceable by administrative citation. And amending Section 3 of Chapter 3 of Title 11, Kuna City Code, making a violation of that chapter, uncovered loads, enforceable by administrative citation. And providing a severability.
So it looks like, you know, when you're doing administrative charges, this is much easier to do, and they're not pursuing misdemeanors until after the third one. Depends on, of course, the issue at hand, and I think that just makes it easier to deal with because you're not having to deal with Idaho law. That's my understanding of this. Not a commercial kennel license violation. So it looks like if people are violating city code, they can just go immediately to administrative fines and citations, rather than hiring the city attorney to pursue relatively smaller pricing.
Clause and directing the city clerk and providing an effective date.
They could have put some more in there for you.
I don't think we should move to waive 3 readings.
Ask a question.
Yeah.
You sure may.
When we start referring to said administrative citation, is that something that the Kuna Police Department is going to enforce?
Do you want me to weigh in, or you?
Oh, that's okay. When they come, in a lot of these, it's talking about administrative citation. Okay, is that something we're still going to be able to contact with the Kuna Police Department, or is that something that the code enforcement guy's going to do?
Councilman Laraway, pardon me, Mayor Steer, City Council, Mike Fortusco, Chief of Police, City of Kuna, 793 West 4th Street. You still will be able to contact us, but that's because our City Code Enforcement Officer works directly for us, but it will be Tim Zins, our City Code Enforcement Officer. I will let Mark answer questions. We will issue them, but then it will go through a process, and I'll let Mark or Nathan talk about that.
Mark Bybee, City Attorney. So I think you probably picked up on these 3 ordinances are all kind of related to one another. First one created the Administrative Citation Program, which is really establishing procedures for issuance and processing and tracking citations. The City Clerk's Office and the City Treasurer have been working with a pro software company on helping create the software that will be the background for keeping track of all these being issued. And then there's these code cleanups to make sure that now that we've done this, that we actually implement it throughout City Code, right? And so that's what's going on here is we're making all these various amendments to different provisions of City Code so that we can actually enforce them. And so I know, Councilman Laraway, it's my understanding you were a police officer, and so if you think about this, we're creating a category of offense less than an infraction that is a city offense offense that it doesn't go to the court system, it's administered entirely through the city.
That's what I was wondering about, because I know before, anytime we tried to enforce a code from a city, the judicial system didn't have it in their system. They didn't know what the fine was, they didn't know what the punishment was, they would not take the case.
And that's dealing with this. I've seen that issue myself as well, of course. That's the deal with that issue. And so we're making certain categories of offenses, the less severe things, just a violation of this administrative citation, and they can challenge that within the city. There's an appeal process if they receive one that they can challenge the citation and basically contend that they shouldn't have to pay the fine. And so it's for fairly minimal offenses. There's in this last ordinance that's just read, there's changes to animal control, and again, I'd say those are, in my recollection, it's been a while since I worked on this, but it was related to licensing type things. Whereas, if you have an aggressive dog that actually attacks someone, that's not going to fall under the administrative citation code. That's still going to be under a more serious category of offense. And so part of going through this was cleaning those up, identifying what reasonably should be an administrative citation, what's an appropriate level of offense for that. A lot of these that are being amended are either infractions or misdemeanors right now. So my experience as an attorney, both from I've done criminal defense and in this realm, is when you have disproportionately harsh penalties for certain offenses, it's often the police officer's discretion to take no action is what I've experienced, because we shouldn't be putting, well, one of them actually proposed to repeal in this ordinance was riding a horse at night. I'm pretty sure that's a misdemeanor. You're riding a horse at night without a light. That's a misdemeanor right now. You can go to jail for it, which seems a little off, so sought repeal of that one. I didn't think it needed to be an administrative citation anymore either. It's, I think, an ordinance from another time. And so just that kind of cleanup, but really making it more appropriate level of penalty.
And the follow-up on that, the other problem we used to have with this is when the citation was given through the city and the person did not either pay or show up, did they get a warrant? And then that one they had to go back through the judicial system.
Yep. And no, this is going to be a lot like an infraction in the court system, where if they don't show up, they're guilty by default, essentially. And so then the fine is just due knowingly. And so that's the part that Nate gets to work on, is how those collections will work once, because I'm sure people will default frequently, and then there'll be the collection process on outstanding fines and fees.
Thank you.
So my question was going to be, so if we go to collections, if we go to putting a lien on property like an HOA violation, used to be, or something like that. Or could it go that far, I guess?
Nathan Stanley, City Clerk, 751 West 4th Street. So they'll have 14 days to pay the fine, or they can have a informal review. Then after the informal review, if it's not dismissed, they don't agree with it, then they can go through the hearing process. And then that'll determine whether they pay the fine or if it's dismissed.
I guess, Mark Bivey, City Attorney, the question is, what happens when they don't? My understanding is, and this started with Chris Ingles when she was here, and so I don't know if this conversation has happened. My understanding the plan would be to send unpaid fines and fees to a collection bureau. I don't know if that's still the intent of the
Yes.
City Clerk's office.
And then I guess the other part was, usually the administrative citation is the result of probably being warned a time or two about something. I mean, I guess it could be immediately, but well, that's severity, I guess, right?
That is correct, Councilman. Normally, I know our code enforcement officer, he contacts people, gives them verbal warnings, he'll send letters, they send letters to the city. It's few and far between. In fact, I don't think that we've had a single non-compliant person when it comes to any kind of city code violation so far. And he's handled quite a few of them. So we try to get them to comply with it prior to any of that.
And to add another silly question, I know this is covered, but I want to ask. The Ada County deputies get brought into town to handle calls, or that memorandum of understanding is all still there, so they can enforce these city codes?
Councilman Laraway, that could be more difficult to answer, as you know, working as a chief in two different cities, how difficult it can be to remind deputies or unincorporated county deputies that, hey, we have city code violations that you can utilize. So we'll work on that. The good thing is those priority one calls, and those are usually priority ones, meaning low-level calls, weeds, or issues like that. It's few and far between that county deputies even to come in and handle an issue like that. It'll usually be 99% of the time code enforcement and maybe one of our unit deputies.
But they can come into town and enforce it.
They could, yes. Yes.
I guess one last thing, the weed one, the difference between administrative citation and the going on to the misdemeanor. I guess that would be something pretty serious on that. It's serious for one level, and then you take it to a whole new level where it would go to misdemeanor.
Yeah, I'd have to look at that in particular. I think it was maybe already at misdemeanor, and we're adding in the administrative citation as a lesser option. And not only that, if you haven't been through the first ordinance in particular has tiers of administrative, stages. I don't know how to say it. You get a first, second, third offense before you can possibly move on to something more severe. And those offenses, similar to like DUI offenses through state law, they have to happen within a certain time period to actually be qualified as a second offense kind of thing. So there's lots of things built in to cushion against this becoming unnecessarily severe quickly, right?
Well, the fact that this was called out specifically compared to all the rest as a misdemeanor, that was like
I wish I could. I'm sorry if you wanted me to jump in, I could take a look at what the change was there, but I suspect. Let me see. Actually, I can jump down to that. Do you remember what bullet point it was, Councilman Biggs?
Section 2 and 3 of Chapter 1, Title 8.
I'm looking at that. It's section 2 and 3.
Yeah, and that's the only one that mentions misdemeanors. That was the one I was concerned about.
Oh, there it is. All right, so let me jump down to the document and see if I can find that quickly.
I guess my comment on that is, if I remember right, the city can make some rule stricter, but they can't make it less. So if we can't take a misdemeanor and make it an infraction.
Sorry, I'm not sure. Sorry, I'm looking at this and I'm not following your question.
Well, if I remember right, the city has, if the state has a code that is a misdemeanor, the city can't come in and make it less than a misdemeanor.
My understanding is that they can make, they can't rewrite.
They can make it harsher.
They can't make it harsher because cities can't prescribe felonies, and that was the only way to get more harsh is for a city to prescribe a penalty or a felony. I mean, or they can, try and prescribe more severe penalties, which I don't believe they can exceed the limits set on them by state code. And also, cities can't. There's only certain arenas that cities can have these type of ordinances in because there's like certain provisions that have been co-opted entirely by the state, right? Like sex crimes, for example. Like the city code wouldn't have ordinances related to that. That area has been entirely occupied by the state, and the state legislature has not delegated authority to the city for that. But for example, the city has quite extensive parking ordinances and animal control ordinances because those are provisions of law that the state legislature has very specifically delegated responsibility and authority to the city for. But as far as can you have less severe penalties on a similar subject, yes, you can. I think that actually becomes an issue of again police officer discretion when they're on the scene because they're in both state and city jurisdiction at the same time, and sometimes the circumstance might warrant a charge under state code as a misdemeanor as opposed to the less severe city code offense. Does that make sense?
Sort of. I'm still stuck on if we have a misdemeanor. I don't believe it behoove us to take that and make it an infraction or administrative.
Well, I guess to get back, if we're back on this weed issue, I don't think there is any state provision related to weed control. That is a misdemeanor, was a misdemeanor in city code, if that's the particular question. But if it's more general, just can we do that in general? I believe we can. I haven't dove into this issue in particular. I'm kind of getting the impression from your question you may have, and so I don't know if I'm overlooking something here that you'd like me to look at.
No, just a general knowledge of 20 years. That's what I was looking for.
Did you get a chance to read through it and figure out?
I was trying to get down to that. That was the weed control one you said, right?
Where I mean, use that as an example, and that one doesn't have to be after, let's say, like, being on a leash, vice attacking dog, or something like that. Well, that one might say that.
So on the weed control one, the reason that it has the misdemeanor may become is that's what's in code already, and so we added language around adding administrative citation as a less severe penalty, and then we just kept the misdemeanor as the alternative after you essentially move through those, one, first, second, and third offenses. And now, if it's become so bad that somebody just refuses to deal with the situation after that many, administrative citations, then it would finally up, and that would be possible again. But absolutely, just like any other offenses, there's always the police officer's discretion is, okay, I have this, does this warrant moving on, or do I give them another third offense, for example?
And I was just mentioning that, like I was comparing it to like animal control, sections 8, 9, 11, 16, that I would figure that animal control is also a similar thing, like if there's simply being off the leash versus the dog attacking somebody, that would mention misdemeanors. So it's just the language I was just a little.
And I think that's the particulars of the animal control changes, that we're hitting certain parts of animal control and leaving a lot of animal control alone. A lot of animal control is staying misdemeanors, so.
Okay. Anything further?
No, mine are just comments of curiosity and memory. And I just want to make sure we didn't make it to something with a particular section that we shouldn't. But if Mark's good with it, I'm good with it.
Actually, I have a question. So with some of these citations or these administrative citations that you would write that we're currently not writing, do you think we need a buffer zone of, rather than going out into the community and start, passing these out where they wouldn't have them before? Should there be 30 days or, so people are aware, right? So they'll wake up tomorrow and all of a sudden they're getting.
Councilman Bruce, I guess my recommendation would be when we're sending out these letters, we put some sort of explanation on the letters itself, explaining what we've moved to and explain what the next step would be on those letters, because they already get verbal contact, and then I believe the second one is a letter. Sometimes it's a letter right off the bat if they can't get hold of them. But I think that's something we can discuss and make sure that we do that.
Councilman Bruce, you actually triggered something for me that I just realized we as staff still need to work on, because included in this is the parking ordinance, if people get citations for that, and something we discussed as staff, and it hasn't been done because there's just been a staff process working on the technology part for a while. We were going to develop a form, an administrative citation form specific to parking. That would be, that ticket that's placed on a windshield kind of thing, if that was going to be done. And so right now that's something actually, I think until Officers in has that, I don't know how we'd be able to begin administering in that realm, at least of these changes. He's lacking one of the tools you need.
Good. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like I said, I think in most instances when people are talking about a problem, they take care of it. So it's generally not a big deal, but once in a while, something comes up. So.
You guys good with that?
Well, would we add a stipulation on that about the parking?
Well, they would just do that once because we've already set up the administrative citation process, right? So that would trigger you guys to.
We just that's something I knew I needed to do, but for whatever reason your question made me realize, in the time process of this, we didn't get it done, and so it's something we'll have to do before actually be able to be taken on parking. And I do, because I think Councilman Bruce, with what you're asking, I think it would be important, especially if the city can also say we're going to start, doing parking enforcement. I think that warrants some, announcement and preparation and warning, type activity, because that'd be a shift. I think a significant shift in policy that'd be, warranted. But the president.
I'll just wait for them to finish, and
You
then
kind of brought it up, but this
I'll bring up some
it
things
seems
I
like we're putting a lot on
noticed.
you, administratively wise, talking about letters, collection, computer program. I mean, it seems like we're putting a lot on the clerk and taking away from the police department, if you will. I mean, you used to go from the police department down to the court system. Now it's going from maybe the police department into the clerk's hands for him to establish.
And so, Councilman Laraway, Mark Bybee, City Attorney, that was absolutely discussions that came up in this process, because where you're saying this would go into the courthouse, I would counter and say actually it wasn't. That what was happening is no action was being taken. A lot of this is sections of code that has gone unenforced because it shouldn't be landing in the court system.
And they were just continuing to violate.
Yeah, and so-
no repercussions.
So let me get this straight. Are you saying that a lot of the stuff that should have been enforced wasn't being enforced?
That's often the approach that's taken in these circumstances, because
That sounds bad for us. Are you?
No, I don't think he's talking about us, Councilman Laraway. I'll let him explain what he's saying.
because we're talking about, so with how relationships work with prosecutors' offices, for example, if this contract the city has with the prosecutor's office does not include prosecution of certain city code offenses, you send it over there and they reject it for prosecution and it doesn't move forward and dismiss. And so if that's the relation that's happening, the discretion that will often then happen is, okay, we're not issuing these citations because we don't have anybody that's going to enforce them. And so knowing that limitation and that, in that relationship, it's how do we create a process elsewhere to actually, start administering these provisions of our code? This isn't unique to the city of Kuna. This happens in a lot of cities, in particular growing cities. And so it has to land somewhere. Right now it's landing on the city clerk's office. It is landing there. Does this grow enough that at some point we say, we need a new landing point? Maybe. I think that's a growth issue the city deals with as it gets there. Because I look at the city of Boise, they have an entire parking services division, but this is all they do for in particular their parking, but they also have another, code enforcement division separate from that. And so they're doing a lot of these things. A lot of the ideas I kind of crafted in here came from things I saw there in other large cities as far as creating the process, for code enforcement within all of it within your city, because the court system, you send them these things and they're not going to process them. Prosecutors are not going to accept the prosecution because it's outside of their contract. They're not, quite frankly, sometimes just not interested in it, so it can get dismissed. And so these are not the types of things. And also, I guess to push this a little further, we can't as a city just send whatever we want to the court system. We don't have that authority of the city to make the court process any type of offense we might come up with, right? On those things that the legislature said, like you can make animal code misdemeanors, we can send those ones there. But when we're making particularized offenses for issues we're dealing with as a city, and we don't have statutory authority saying you can just do this specific thing and make it a misdemeanor, we can't send those. We can't make those offenses and make them go to the prosecutor's office without obtaining some separate contract with them specifically for enforcement of city ordinance.
And I think the important part of this is if we write a citation right now, there's really no avenue for someone to come in to object to that citation. And that's what all of this is allowing a place for them to come in and say, I don't agree, I don't think I should have been given a citation for this. And then there's a process for which that to go forward. And then at least then they have the rights, whereas normally it would go to court, but we're not going to do a court.
So how does that
we can't
work?
send these things to court. So.
I understand what the mayor is saying, but if somebody has an objection to a citation, they come in and they face city clerk, what is the process?
Yeah, so Nathan Stanley, City Clerk, Councilman Laraway. If the responsible party wants to contest their citation, that's where the informal review comes in. And so they'll have the informal review. Say the citation was noticed in error, then it'd be dismissed. They don't have to pay the fine. If it's not dismissed, they are noticed within 7 days of the non-dismissal, and then that's where it goes into the administrative hearing. And then a written decision is sent to the responsible party within 14 days, I believe, of that decision.
Which is all handled by you.
Correct.
Well, except for the hearing part.
The
The hearing part will be handled by me.
Oh, well, that's the whole point.
Because I have,
Judge and jury?
I have previous hearing officer experience when I was with IDOC, so I have training in disciplinary hearings.
I'm just getting to the point, how much of this is going to be a workload, isn't it? I mean, are we creating something?
I guess we'll see.
In my view, I don't think it's going to be a big workload. If it does turn into a big workload, then we have to adjust and figure it out from there.
And like the chief said,
I don't think it's going to be that big a deal.
most people respond well to being notified of a code violation. I don't think it's going to turn into something where we have multiple citations being handed out every day where my job turns into just citation hearings.
Just looking out for you.
I appreciate
We
it.
won't all be here forever, though. There'll be different people.
Councilman Laraway, I'd say that's something too that we can kind of help manage that workload as to what our enforcement, strategy is and like how strict we are on enforcement. Like, are there certain steps we take before enforcement to avoid it? Are there, I just think I don't want to get too far into the realm of actually being a police officer. That's what I'm trying to get at. There's always this level of discretion, and if we're, taking it too far too aggressive an approach that's burying our city clerk's office, I think that's something we can adjust internally and be like, okay, this even if we want to take this, it's not working operationally. We got to think better operationally and how this works for the city.
And so it says the mayor will appoint and serve as a city hearing officer.
Okay, any further questions?
You want to let it ride? You want to waive it? Yeah? Make a motion that we waive 3 readings
Thank you.
of,
Should have made it sweaty.
hold on a second, of ordinance 2024-18.
Motion is made and seconded to waive the 3 readings. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Make a motion that we approve ordinance 2024-18.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded for approval. Any further discussion on that motion? Nathan, would you poll the council?
Councilmember Biggs? Councilmember Laraway?
Yes.
Council President Bruce?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Make a motion that we approve the summary publication of 2024-18.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded for summary publication. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That takes us to 9A, consideration of approved ordinance 2024-14 for Kuna apartments. Municipal rezone ordinance, the city council, the city of Kuna making certain findings and declaration of authority and rezoning certain real property to Ada County assessors, parcel numbers S132.
All right, so this administrative fine situation actually is actually kind of a big deal. I don't know, like huge. So previously what they were saying is a lot of the lesser statutes, weed control, for example, parking, have not necessarily been enforced because they've been they'll go up to misdemeanors. So there's felony level, which both of these could, as defined under state law, result in jail time. So a lot of the officers that are contracted by the city of Kuna, which are Ada County deputies, specifically allocated to the city, choose not to enforce this, and it creates all of this paperwork. You send it to the prosecutor's office, I think the state DA, to prosecute these, and they don't have the time. They don't want to be dealing with these kinds of things, or maybe it's the county. I'm not sure if the county has those kinds of things, but they're dealing with like actual cases. So instead, they created this. What you saw that discussion, they created this administrative process, and we'll see practically speaking how it works. Now, what's interesting is, so you have the informal hearing where the administrative staff talks about this, and we talk about the administrative state, and so the bureaucrats coming in and being able to issue fines, but in the case with city level, I guess we'll find out how this ends up being, and the city council members are really on top of it, and you can just give them a call if this does become an issue and you need to revoke their power. But the main issue is the administrative hearing officer. So you have the informal review, which I believe is just done by the staff. They just make sure it's not whatever. I don't know what the criteria is for that. And if they consider the fine being okay, then it moves. You can go to the administrative hearing officer situation, and the administrative officer is appointed by the mayor, and they have a final decision. And then I guess you can be represented by an attorney. And I guess the next step too is if you really disagree with the administrative citation hearing process, you can go to actual court. But keep in mind the dollar amounts for a lot of these administrative fines are like $50, $25. I think it goes up to $300, and this is after multiple items. So you know, it's not worth hiring an attorney oftentimes. And oh, the other thing is the actual administrative costs related to these hearings. So yes, you may have these fines, but then there's time, and then the investigations. They can bill that onto the party who is contesting it. Um, the what one of the things, at least in regular law, is when you place a legal action against an opposing party. We do this on the business side. You can ask for attorney fees. And when I was reading regarding the administrative hearing, it would also seem to be like, if the city wins, you have the infraction, the person who does the infraction has to pay the legal fees to the city and all of the time that they wasted. But what about the inverse? What if you win, right, in the administrative hearing? Do you get reimbursement of your legal fees? Um, and I don't know if that's really the case. But anyway, we will see what happens, what goes on going forward. Looks like it just started, and so we'll see how the process works. You got parking, and as the mayor stated, the volume of this is likely very minimal, but we'll see what happens. Uh, yeah, it's interesting, but I think theoretically it's very interesting, but practically speaking, I think most people in Kuna will just abide by what the code says and aren't like repeat infractions. But we will see. We will see what happens. Obviously, as time develops, they're going to have to make adjustments. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. All right, have a good one. Bye bye.